Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook Live. I am Bryson Carver, as always. Got a great show for you guys today. I'm going to get into in just a second why the Lakers win over the Nets means absolutely nothing. I'll get into that in just a second. Also, Julian Edelman today announced his retirement. I will explain to you why I do not believe, despite his great career, one of the great overachievers in the league, he is not a Hall of Famer. I'll get into that later in the show. Also, you had A.J. Hinch in Houston, former manager of the Houston Astros. He's making his return tonight against the Houston Astros as the manager of the Detroit Tigers. And I'll get into that kind of whole reaction to the Astros cheating scandal, of course, from a couple years back, or a year ago when all the suspensions were happening and things of that nature. Also, DeAndre Hopkins won the Alpha Award, whatever the heck that is, for the best offseason acquisition in the NFL. They must have forgot about another guy that I'll get into later in the show. So that is all coming at next. Also, some reaction to James Wiseman's unfortunate season-ending injury. But quickly, I'll address this before I get to the Lakers versus Nets game. I'm sure you guys saw earlier today, due to the unrest and the protests following a police killing of an unarmed black man by the name of Dante Wright. We had 3 games postponed in the city of Minneapolis today, starting with, actually, it was my Red Sox. I'm wearing a Red Sox hat for the podcast audience. But the Red Sox Twins game was postponed from earlier today. And then tonight, the Nets versus Timberwolves game in the NBA, that was postponed. And the Wild versus Blues game in the NHL, that was postponed as well. Look, at the end of the day, these teams didn't have much of a choice. Because it's difficult after last night's events to just turn around and play a game. So props to the Timberwolves, to the Wild, and to the Twins for doing the right thing and just postponing these events for another day. After what happened last night, you can play games another day. You can reschedule them. I don't know if there's any fans in the stands of the arenas or in the ballpark, but you can obviously, I think the Nets Timberwolves game is going to get postponed to like next Tuesday or something. So nothing, they'll still be able to play the game, but that's obviously secondary to what happened last night. Now Saturday night, and I talked about this on Friday night's show, obviously the day before that, the Nets were scheduled to play the Lakers. And, I kind of discussed, is this our NBA Finals? And I believe it is. Before the season, along with a lot of people, was like, yeah, we're going to get Lakers Finals, Lakers-Nets NBA Finals, and it's going to be one for the Bucks. And, of course, a lot of stuff has happened since the start of the season. The James Harden trade. James Harden's now a Brooklyn Net, of course. He's missed the last week or so because of a hamstring injury, but good news is KD's back. Kyrie, before he was ejected the Saturday night, was playing well. And, of course, they've added LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin. And then on the Lakers side of the equation, they acquired Andre Drummond, which I thought was huge. I thought it kept them in the championship picture. I don't think if they acquire Andre Drummond with all the injuries that they've had to deal with, I don't think they get to the finals. So I think he's a big X factor for him. Third best player on the team, no, I would give that to Dennis Schroeder. I'm not giving it to Kuzma because I don't know what I'm getting night in and night out, but that's another story for another day. But the other night, the Lakers, man, took it to the Nets. 126-101 was the final score. After halftime, that game was over. I mean, the Lakers were the more physical team. They shot better from the field. Ben McLemore, who they picked up, was excellent, I thought, knocking down multiple three-point shots. I think he hit 4 in the game, so that's huge off the bench. That they were, again, before Dennis Schroeder got ejected, he was playing excellent. It was a great win for the Lakers with no LeBron, no AD, no Kuzma, and they go on the road to Brooklyn, cross-country, and smack the Nets. I mean, it did their thing to the Nets. As we got a comment from my man Clutch Sports Talk, Ryan Flowers. Kuzma's wardrobe is more consistent than his game. His wardrobe is terrible. It is awful. I totally agree with you, Ryan Flowers. But yeah, I agree. You don't know what you're getting night in and night out. I don't remember from the finals, if we're talking about last year with the Lakers in the finals against the Miami Heat, I don't remember a big Kyle Kuzma shot. I don't remember a big Kyle Kuzma play. Of course, everybody knows, LeBron, AD. But I remember big shots by KCP, and Rondo was great in that series, and even Caruso played well. I don't remember anything from Kyle Kuzma. Like, I don't remember him making any kind of imprint on the series. Heck, I remember at the end of Game 6, Dwight Howard hit a logo 3 for what it's worth. Obviously, the game was over, but I remember that. I don't remember much of Kyle Kuzma in last year's finals, but you're right. His wardrobe is awful. but I mean, it's down there in the league. It's not Tim Duncan bad, but it's bad. But just getting back to it, here's why I believe it means absolutely nothing. It means nothing. Starting with, of course, you say, oh, well, Bryce, you're just using the old cliche, the regular season doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't. I mean, I hate to break it to you, the regular season doesn't matter. Let me ask you this question. Nets fans, if you're down about it, or Lakers fans, if you're, on cloud 9 about that win Saturday night, which, of course, I'm sure you're not on cloud 9. I mean, the Lakers have high expectations. They've won 17 championships, and they have a culture and a history of winning. But let me ask both fan bases and really any NBA fan a question. So last year when the Lakers played the Heat in the regular season, what do you remember from those games that translated into the NBA Finals? I don't remember either. When the Warriors played the Cavs, I remember one. And I'm a Warriors fan too. I remember one Warriors-Cavs regular season game, and that was 2016. It was the Christmas game, one of the greatest regular season games, might be the best Christmas game of all time. Remember the Lakers and the Heat back in the day with Shaq and Kobe going head to head for the first time since their split. We've had some great Christmas Day games. That might have been the best. Outside of that, Warriors-Cavs. Outside the one classic on Christmas Day, I don't remember a single thing about when they played in the regular season, and they matched up in 4 straight finals. Yeah, so even if you go back and look, is there really anything you could take from those games where you're like, okay, yeah, that translated 4 months later, 5 months later, that translated in the finals? No, you don't remember that. I don't either. I mean, listen, none of us do. That's what I'm saying. So, and keep in mind also, and I'm not going to overreact to this either, but once we got to, let's see, it was shortly after Anthony Davis's injury. It might have been right before. I can't remember. I know KD had been out, but it was LeBron in the Lakers. This was before LeBron's ankle injury, and it was Kyrie, Harden, in the Nets. And this is before they had Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and the Nets went into LA cross-country trip and beat the Lakers. As we got another comment from Ryan Flowers. No, if it doesn't mean anything, however, it does give us a preview of certain matchups. You're right, but at the same time, you could even go back to that Christmas Day game. If we're going to talk about these potential final preview matchups in the regular season. If you think about Golden State and Cleveland years back, Cleveland did to Steph Curry in that game. I remember this, what they did to him in the previous finals, of course, when, it still hurts to this day when Golden State blew the 3-1 lead to the Cavaliers. They roughed up Steph Curry. I mean, they were pushing him around, and we got to the finals, and Steph Curry averaged more rebounds than Tristan Thompson, who's like 6-7 inches taller than him. So it's those little things like, man, does it really at the end of the day, does it contribute to what we're going to get in the NBA Finals? And again, I think the Clippers will push the Lakers. I do, but as I said on Friday's show or Thursday or Friday's show, one of the two, it's not if the Clippers will lose, it's how they'll choke. That's my mantra that, this year with the Clippers, or not just this year, really any year. That's what the Clippers do. They find a way to screw it up. I think Denver could give the Lakers problems, maybe even Portland. But I think at the end of the day, man, you got LeBron James, you got Anthony Davis, you're going to win the West. But once they match up against Brooklyn, you're going to have a healthy Nets team, you're going to have a healthy Lakers team. So that's the thing. It's those little things. Like, we have not seen a fully healthy Nets team take on a fully healthy Lakers team. So I think that's what we got to keep in mind here. As we have a comment from Grady Edwards on YouTube. Grady Edwards says, do you think Julian Edelman is a Hall of Famer based off of postseason numbers? This guy is the second best postseason wideout of all time. 3-0 when he was started at wideout in Super Bowls. Grady, I'm going to get to that in literally just a minute, so please hang around. I'm sure you'll have reaction to what I think about that because, of course, as everybody knows by now, Julian Edelman announced his retirement from the NFL. So stick around, Grady. I will get to that in just a second. But the point in all of this is, last week, the Pelicans, who are currently the 11th seed in the West, beat the Philadelphia 76ers, who most people, including myself, think are the only team out east with any chance to beat Brooklyn. Okay, well, cool. What does that matter? Because, Embiid's back and Embiid's in the MVP conversation. Okay, cool. Zion's unbelievable. That's my takeaway. Zion is just a freak of nature. He's unbelievable. But a Pelicans 76ers playoff series, come on, do we really? Pelicans might get one game at best. Okay, the Sixers would just they'd take the Pelicans to school, man. That wouldn't even be close. So at the end of the day, man, we all know NBA regular season don't mean jack squat. We all know that. So that's my thoughts on the Lakers-Nets game on Saturday night. Now, getting to Julian Edelman now. Julian Edelman announced his retirement from the NFL. This came about an hour and a half after his contract was terminated by the New England Patriots. And so, yeah, he put out a video on Instagram. I'm sure on Twitter as well. I haven't checked, but I just saw it on my Instagram feed. I'm retiring a Patriot. He gave thanks to Belichick and to Robert Kraft. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and my teammates and my family. Kind of the classic retirement speech. And so let's put it this way. I'll just go and put this comment back up about whether Julian Edelman is a Hall of Famer. Now, when you look at his postseason numbers, man, they're strong. They're strong. Like this comment says, based off the postseason numbers, this guy's the second best postseason wideout of all time. And the facts show that. 118 postseason receptions and over 1,400 yards, which is the second most in the Super Bowl era behind the greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice. So that is pretty darn strong when you talk about Julian Edelman. And of course, he's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, and he's a Super Bowl MVP. I thought that Super Bowl MVP should have went to Stephon Gilmore, but Julian Edelman did have an excellent game in Super Bowl 53. But he never made a Pro Bowl. Julian Edelman is a guy, and I know it's cliche. I hate using cliches on the show, but sometimes you got to use them. Julian Edelman is a guy who I would put in the quote-unquote Hall of Very Good. The Hall of Very Good. Guys like Eli Manning are in the Hall of Very Good. Some argue, even despite the numbers, Frank Gore is in the Hall of Very Good. Frank Gore is the third all-time rusher in NFL history. The man passed Jim Brown. Jim Brown, who, has been long regarded by many as the greatest running back ever. Nobody thinks Frank Gore is the greatest running back ever. Now at this point, he's only behind Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders. And so, or not Barry Sanders, excuse me, Walter Payton. And so you have that, and you're like, Frank Gore never led the NFL, just not even one season of his career. Frank Gore has never led the NFL in rushing. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Like, when you always say, when you tell the story of the National Football League, can you do it without this guy? And don't give me, listen, David Tyree, I hear is a lot like, hey, David Tyree, nobody remembers any of his catches except the one helmet catch, which was certainly one of the great catches in the history of the Super Bowl. Okay, it was. He made that play. Eli Manning, we all remember, it's the Super Bowl 42 in Glendale, Arizona. It's the Giants, the underdog Giants, who are a wild card team against the 18-0 New England Patriots with the MVP and Tom Brady and Randy Moss, who had the best season of his career, and it just looked unbeatable. And of course, Patriots score a touchdown with just over 2 minutes left, and we all know the rest of the story. Eli drives him down the field on 3rd and 11. He almost gets sacked. He breaks out of it and just heaves it. And David Tyree over Rodney Harrison makes one of the great catches in the history of the National Football League in the biggest game in the National Football League, which is, of course, the Super Bowl. But outside of that, what did David Tyree do? Now, Julian Edelman had a better career than David Tyree. That's, of course, that's not even debatable. Of course he did. He won an MVP of the Super Bowl. As this comment mentioned, he is 3-0 in the Super Bowl when he starts. But I would put it this way. Tom Brady has a thing for making no-name guys really, really, really good. That's why he goes to Tampa, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he's got guys that are already established. Mike Evans, one of the best receivers in the league. Chris Godwin. You have Antonio Brown come in. You had Gronk come in out of retirement. O.J. Howard, who I loved coming out of Alabama. Cameron Brate, who's a reliable tight end. And so I looked at it and I said, man, this is the best receiving core he's ever had. Danny Amendola, for example. Edelman's better than Danny Amendola, but Danny Amendola left New England, went to, I think it was Miami, did nothing there. Now it was under Adam Gase, so we'll give him a little pass there. Adam Gase is not exactly known for developing talent, but no, he goes to Miami and we don't hear from Danny Amendola. Then he goes to Detroit and we still don't hear from Danny Amendola. So he just kind of disappeared once he left Tom Brady, and that's been the case with a lot of players. As I see another comment here from Grady Edwards. I see your point with Eli. He'll definitely get in just based off the 2 Super Bowls. He just stuck around the NFL for too long, kind of became a joke his last 4 seasons. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And you hear players talk about all the time, and Julian Edelman even referenced this in his Hall of Fame, or not his Hall of Fame, his retirement video on Instagram. He said, look, I said I'm going to play till the wheels fall off, and the wheels have fallen off. Well, Eli Manning really played till the wheels fell off, to the point where it was becoming hard to watch. Like, Eli was a pretty darn good quarterback. Obviously, he won the 2 Super Bowls, but you look at his numbers, he was a good regular season quarterback, and he put up good numbers with OBJ. But starting around late 2016, early 2017, it was like, gosh, he's lost it. He's not got it anymore. And so that's kind of what happened. And yeah, Eli is probably going to get in the Hall of Fame because of longevity, because of numbers, because of the 2 Super Bowl MVPs. And to his credit, he did it against the GOAT. He did it against the greatest dynasty in NFL history. So, hey, hats off to Eli Manning. But I just sit back and say, when it comes to Edelman, and I give, as we got another comment here from my man Barry Grant Jr. from the All Even podcast, time will be kind to Eli in regards to the Hall of Fame with Giants fans. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. Giants fans love Eli. You saw his retirement press conference, and there's people crying, and it's they loved Eli Manning, and they should. He was great in the community. Won them 2 Super Bowls. The Giants are often regarded as one of the best organizations in the league, and so he wins those 2 Super Bowls against the greatest dynasty in NFL history. So yeah, he deserves a lot of credit. I actually honestly believe. Not a first ballot, don't get me wrong, but just because of the fact that he's got the numbers, the regular season numbers, he's got multiple Pro Bowls on his belt, he's got 2 Super Bowl MVPs on his belt. He made one of the best throws. The second Super Bowl win in 2011, Super Bowl 46 against the Patriots. That was one of the best throws I've ever seen to Mario Manningham on the sideline. I think all of that, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I can make a case Eli may have a case. I still would sit back and say he's probably in the Hall of Very Good. But again, I don't know. Time will tell as this comment puts. But yeah, thank you for the comment, Barry. But yeah, when it comes to Edelman, what did he really do without Brady? I mean, last year he's got Cam Newton. And I say this a lot about Belichick. I say it about a lot of Patriots players and coaches. Like, Brady made a lot of people look better than they actually are. Belichick has, in his career, made the play. I think he's coached like 8 years as a head coach without Tom Brady. And he's made the playoffs twice. Or excuse me, he's made the playoffs 1 time. He's had 2 seasons where he's had a winning record. So I think Belichick's a defensive mastermind. But without Tom Brady, would Belichick be in the conversation for greatest coach ever? Heck no. No, good night. Nobody's discussing Bill Belichick in that. Nobody's putting Belichick in that conversation anytime soon without Tom Brady. So that's the thing is there's been a lot of players that's come from New England on the offensive side of the ball who Brady made them look spectacular. Turn this guy a 7th-round pick. He was a quarterback in college at Kent State. Tom turned him into a Super Bowl MVP. And some of his biggest plays were in the Super Bowl. We remember the go-ahead and what ended up being the game-winning touchdown against the Seahawks in Super Bowl 49 against the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, that followed up 2 minutes later with the infamous Malcolm Butler interception. And 2 years later, he made one of the craziest catches in a Super Bowl since probably David Tyree, where he's, Brady throws in a double coverage, it gets tipped, and Edelman somehow makes the catch. It's that a lot of people look at that along with the Dante Hightower forced fumble as like the turning point in that 28-3 comeback against the Atlanta Falcons. So, if the Hall of Fame were just based on the playoffs, Julian Edelman's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he is. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He'd have a better case than Tony Gonzalez, who, in my mind, is the greatest tight end ever. Because Tony Gonzalez didn't do anything in the playoffs. Edelman did. But if you look at body of work, it's like, oh, yeah, Tony Gonzalez, man, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Come on. Edelman, he's absolutely not a first ballot Hall of Famer. And, if it took, and I get it, some of this was based on reputation. But the fact that it took T.O. 3 tries is like, I mean, come on. It took Terrell Owens, who I believe might be the second or third best receiver ever. It took him 3 tries. Now, I get it. That was based on reputation only. But it's like, come on. So Edelman's a first ballot, or even, the second go around. As we have another comment from Grady Edwards. Do you think Edelman might get a break because the guy didn't really become a starter until his 5th year in the league? You can make that argument because, of course, he did come in 2009. He didn't become a starter, like you said, until Wes Welker departed and went to the Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning and was a part of Peyton's 55 touchdown pass season. That's a fair argument, but then again, I almost think it says, okay, you started in 2014, and again, as great as he was in the playoffs, never even made a Pro Bowl. Like, I mean, come on, you got to at least... Mitchell Trubisky has made a Pro Bowl. So you'd think Julian Edelman, being one of the clutch receivers that we've seen in the last 20, 30 years, you'd think he could at least make a Pro Bowl. Please. I mean, please, could you make a Pro Bowl? But, it is what it is. Another comment from Barry Grant Jr. I can't see Edelman getting in. He will be in the Ring of Honor for the Pats. That's it. Totally with you there, Barry. He's one of the greatest Patriots ever. I would argue one of the 10 greatest Patriots ever. But no, I just can't see a guy who never even made a Pro Bowl. Same with Frank Gore. Never led the league in rushing. And I say Hall of Fame. Like one of the best players to ever play the game. He's got, record. You can't say that about Julian Edelman. So that's the thing. But yes, he's absolutely, he 100% deserves to be in the Ring of Honor with the Patriots. He's one of the best New England Patriots ever. And he's earned that. He's earned that right. He's one of the 10 best Patriots to ever play. I ought to do a list of that one of these days. You got the Willie McGinnis and Ty Law, I think recently got in the Hall of Fame. Of course, Tom would be number one on the list. Teddy Bruschi, there's been some great Patriots over the years, but I think Edelman makes the list. He is going to be in the Ring of Honor, but he's not a Hall of Famer. As I'm going to transition to my next topic after answering this question from Bunit Chima. I hope I'm saying your name right. Lakers or Clippers in best of 7? Well, I kind of said this early in the show, and I said it at last week, but I will answer your question by saying this, and I've said it for a week now. It's become like my new kind of catchphrase or my new motto when it comes to the Los Angeles Clippers, who I thought were going to win the finals last year. I did, and I was dead wrong. It's not whether the Clippers will lose, it's how they'll choke. They will up. I'm sorry. And does Rondo make them better? No doubt. Rondo was great last night, by the way, in the Clippers win. But is it a team that I trust to beat LeBron James, Anthony Davis? The depth they have with Dennis Schroeder, Andre Drummond. Again, Ben McLemore off the bench, man. That was a heck of an acquisition. At least it looked like on Saturday night. Hopefully he can continue that. We have another comment from Grady Edwards. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Do the Lakers have a big three if AD and LeBron return healthy? If you're talking about either Schroeder or Drummond, I don't think it's a big three. I don't. LeBron's in my mind, the second greatest player ever. I think if the Lakers win this finals against the Nets in a few months from now, I'm going to crown LeBron the greatest ever. It would be that darn near impossible. And if he pulls it off, then God bless him. It's one of the great accomplishments of any player in history. And then we all know what Anthony Davis represents. He's the best power forward in the league. He's going to continue to he's going to continue to build on what he's done. In his career thus far, playing with LeBron is going to help that. And at some point, I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I can't say that about either Drummond, as we see the comment here. Let's see, Drummond. So, no, Andre Drummond is one of the best rebounders in the league, but nobody's talking about Andre in the same sentence as LeBron or Anthony Davis. So I can't put that in a big three. But thank you for the question, though. I got another comment from Barry Grant Jr., who is a Lakers fan. If you can't tell with this comment, the Clippers have to worry about the space heaters and the dehumidifiers in the basement. We hear that all the time, right? They live in the basement of the Staples Center. Now they're going to get an arena at the old Forum where the Lakers used to play. I don't know if the Clippers used to play there or not. I don't know. They've been irrelevant for years. I wouldn't know. But I think they're actually supposed to be getting a new arena in Inglewood, close to where the Rams play, SoFi Stadium, at the old Forum. So, Steve Ballmer's done a great job as the owner. Jerry West, was the greatest executive of all time, as far as I'm concerned. But no, I can't take the Clippers seriously until they've never made a conference finals, guys. Come on. They've never made a conference finals, much less an NBA finals. So that's, I agree with this comment. Let's see. Don't be surprised, Bunit Chima. I hope I'm saying your name right. Don't be surprised if the Clippers win because Kawhi plays his best against Bron and will be on him tight. I don't know about he plays the best against LeBron because the last two times he's played, LeBron has shut Kawhi down. Shut him down. The last time they played, or I was thinking about last season. I know they played on opening day. It's opening day. Last year, it was the first game back since, of the NBA restart. It was, I think, like July 30th or 31st, something like that. And the Lakers and Clippers played, and it was like the seeding games. And I remember down the stretch of that game, LeBron took Kawhi. He was guarding Kawhi Leonard and just completely took him out of the game in the fourth quarter. And Kawhi really couldn't stop LeBron. LeBron actually got the game-winning layup to win it there. So Kawhi's a great player. Kawhi's a top 4 player in my mind. I think it's today, mad respect for LeBron. Kevin Durant, LeBron. I think it's Giannis at 3, Kawhi Leonard, and I think Steph is at 5. Look what Steph's doing with the Warriors. It's incredible. But Kawhi's a great player. Best two-way player in basketball, no debate. But he's not no, he can't stop LeBron. Nobody can stop LeBron. So thank you for these comments by all these people. As we got another one. Grady Edwards, can LeBron be the GOAT if he doesn't get 6? To me, he can be the GOAT if he gets 6. Of course, he's referring 6 rings. 5 gets him neck and neck with Jordan just because he's made so many finals. That's a great point. And I initially was thinking, okay, this is before the James Harden trade. I'm actually on the record saying this on the show, that if the Lakers win this finals against the Nets, this is, again, before the James Harden trade when it was just KD and Kyrie and, good supporting cast. And I'm thinking, okay, if LeBron wins this finals, which at the time I thought he was going to, and of course he still could, I was thinking, okay, it is going to close the gap substantially between he and Michael Jordan. But then once they added Harden, once they added Blake Griffin, once they added LaMarcus Aldridge, I read Spencer Dinwiddie might be back before the end of the season, so there's that. That's what I'm looking at, and I say he'll be a ring short, and I get it. That is a totally valid argument you have, Grady, but I'm still looking at it and I'm saying, man, this is tough. Like, if LeBron pulls this off, it's over. It is over. With no disrespect to the great Michael Jordan, with no disrespect to him, that would be incredible. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the whole GOAT debate. As we have another comment from Bunit Chima. Bron already the GOAT. Well, I mean, you could, I guess you could make a case for him, but I say 4 rings in 10 tries. So I think the record aspect, if he just retired today with 4 rings, I think he'd be second to Jordan. I don't think you can have an intelligent basketball discussion when you're ranking the best players ever and not have Jordan and LeBron as your top two. Whatever order you have them in, those have got to be your top two. You can't, with no disrespect, God rest his soul, Kobe Bryant, I cannot put Kobe over those two. I can't put Kareem over those two. That's, yeah. As Booney says, if the Clippers win this year and beat LeBron, is he top 10 all time? Yes. Yes, LeBron's top 10. If he loses to the Clippers, man, that's not going to... Yes, he's top 10. Are you serious? I could be misconstrued your comment. If so, please clarify, and I will respond to that. But yeah, LeBron is, yeah, he's got his legacy solidified at the worst case scenario, top 2 or 3 ever. So top 10, you cannot name 10 players better than LeBron James. I don't care who you are. He's got this. No, I'm talking about Kawhi. Okay, Bunit Chima says no, I'm talking about Kawhi. Okay, that's good. Thank you for the clarification. That is a very interesting argument, because then what you would have here is you have Kawhi, who would have 3. We would assume if the Clippers were to go on and win the finals, we would assume Kawhi would win Finals MVP. So what would that do? It would mean he's won 3 Finals MVPs with 3 different teams. Now, we'd have the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, that's great, but you had Tim Duncan. You had you had Tim Duncan, you had Manu Ginobili, you had Tony Parker, you had Greg Popovich as your head coach. It's like, that's great, but that support does help. But then you could say, okay, he won a championship with the Toronto Raptors, who up until Kawhi had gotten there had only been to just one conference finals, and Kawhi against a beat-up Golden State team, albeit, won the championship, won the first championship, and likely the only championship in Raptors history. So if he were to go to the Clippers, who, as I mentioned many times, if he goes to the Clippers and wins the finals, wow, you may really have a case for Kawhi as a top 10 player. You'd certainly have an argument. As Perry says, we have a Clippers fan in here. Lovely, LOL. Yeah, I guess he is a Clippers fan. Grady Edwards says, speaking of Hall of Fame debates, who is the player that isn't in the Basketball Hall of Fame that deserves to be in the most? To me, it is Bill Laimbeer. That is a great question. He says, guy doesn't get enough respect. Probably isn't in because he's hated by so many writers. Well, it's not like Bill Laimbeer was out there, making a ton of friends on the court, if you know what I mean. But that's, I guess you could maybe make a case for him. Man, greatest player ever that isn't in the Hall of Fame. Now, what you got to keep in mind here is it's like, for example, the NFL, it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. College players can't get in. College coaches can't get in. They've got a separate Hall of Fame for college players. In the NBA, it's the NBA, it's the WNBA, it's college basketball, men's and women's. So that's you got to keep that in consideration. Man, you really put me on the spot here. I appreciate that, Grady. But, you know what? I'll do something here because I can't come up with one on the fly. What I'll do is I'll do a segment on this on Thursday. How's that sound? You can check out the show on Thursday, and I will respond to this question, and I will give you the greatest player of all time that is not in the Hall of Fame. I will. There's a lot of guys you could include. I'll do it. So you've got my word on it. I'm gonna respond to this, and I'm gonna name the greatest player of all time who's not in the Hall of Fame on Thursday's show. Thank you so much for the question, though, Grady. Bam Bam says Julian not making the Hall of Fame, sadly. Here's my thoughts again on Edelman. He's one of the great overachiever stories in the NFL. He was barely recruited out of high school. He goes to Kent State. He's a quarterback. He gets drafted in the 7th round. Man almost goes undrafted. He gets drafted in the 7th round by Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Goes on, 5 years later, as Grady mentioned earlier in the chat, goes on to become a starter in 2014. And in that season, he actually threw a touchdown pass to Danny Amendola in their playoff win against Baltimore. But later on in that Super Bowl against Seattle, he made a lot of big catches in that game, including what ended up being the game-winning touchdown. So yeah, and of course 2 years later he made one of the wackiest Super Bowl catches ever against the Atlanta Falcons when the score was still 28-20. New England ended up scoring in that drive, tying it, and winning it in overtime. And then 2 years after that, he wins the Super Bowl MVP. So it's a great he had one of the great postseason careers in NFL history, and at the end of the day, that means more than anything in the regular season. But he never made a Pro Bowl. Like that's what's like. Again, like Mitch Trubisky made a Pro Bowl. It's hard to put a guy. It's hard to put a guy like that in the Hall of Fame. As going back to best players ever who was not in the Hall of Fame in basketball, Barry says Joe Dumars, great case. He was part of, I think, up until Steph and Clay, the best backcourt in NBA history. Of course, with the Detroit Pistons, you had, of course, the great Isaiah Thomas, one of the 5 greatest point guards ever, and Joe Dumars, who was one of the better 2 guards ever. So yeah, you got a great case for him. And Grady agrees. Dumars is in. Okay, so that's good to know. So that's let's keep this debate going. I'd actually like to talk about this more on Thursday's show, but we do have to move on to my next topic, and that's AJ Hinch, who is the manager now of the Detroit Tigers. He is returning to Houston tonight against the Houston Astros. Of course, I think they're starting their series tonight against the Astros. And, of course, he will probably go down in history as the guy who was one of the biggest, players in one of the biggest cheating scandals in 100 years in Major League Baseball. So yeah, and we've seen all season long, because there are some fans in the stands in Major League Baseball. We've seen that there's been a lot of hate directed their way, right? There's been a lot of, I think when they were in Los Angeles, or really Anaheim, playing the Angels, there was a fan who threw out like a blow up trash can, which of course is a reference to the trash cans, which the Astros used to cheat, to steal signals from the opposing team back in 2017, the year they won the World Series. And so the question is are the fans being too hard on Houston? I say absolutely not. Now, when it comes to cheating scandals, baseball, and partly because their history is longer than any other major American sport, but baseball by far has the most cheating scandals of any sport ever. I mean, you got plenty in the NFL. Some that were cheating scandals, some were just, flat out scandals. I saw earlier today that they're going to make a documentary about the Bounty Gate Saints. Of course, that year when they beat the crap out of Kurt Warner in the playoff game, beat the crap out of Brett Favre in that NFC Championship game, and got Sean Payton suspended for the 2012 season, got multiple coaches and players suspended. And I saw that Kevin James is going to play Sean Payton. So that's Paul Blart is going to play an NFL head coach. So that should be interesting. But we've had our fair share of scandals in sports. There's been few like this one in recent memory, because you got a team in Houston that's banging, they got cameras in the outfield. And they basically, of course, they see what the catcher is signaling. And I guess somebody is near a trash can and they have their signals. Let's say there's a, fastball inside. Let's say fastball inside is bang, bang, bang. Like if you go 1, 2, 3, like bang on the trash can 3 times, that will let the Astros player know, okay, he's coming with the fastball inside. As Barry says, baseball has the most dirty laundry ever. Absolutely. Yes, they do. We had and this was back when, players didn't get paid hardly anything at all, but we had the Black Sox scandal back in, I think, 1919. So yeah, over 100 years ago. So yes, baseball has had its fair share of scandals. But when you have a camera in the outfield, which can see what the pitcher is throwing, you're going to relay that down to somebody down, the foul line, to bang on the trash can, to have signals that have obviously been told to the players. It is one of the, I got to rule on the show. You don't ever put asterisks next to championships. You earned it. I don't care if there's injuries, but in this case, there's a big fat asterisk, because you want to talk about cheating your way. They cheated their way to a championship. Okay. They beat my Red Sox in the division series. They beat the Yankees in 7 games in the championship series. And then the Dodgers, who had the best regular season that year, got screwed out of a World Series title in 2017. And the series still went 7 games. Like both the Yankees and the Dodgers took Houston 7 games. And the Yankees and Dodgers, we know for sure the Dodgers weren't cheating. Like that shows me how great the Dodgers were that season. Like when Houston was putting up these double-digit runs, like in Game 5, for example, Dodgers kept up right with them. They kept up with them. And so I give the Dodgers major credit for even staying in the series when Houston had an unfair advantage of the trash cans and of the cameras in the outfield. So, major props to the Dodgers, and I was happy for them when they finally won that World Series last season against Tampa. But this is one of the all-timers where you're like, man, like this is I don't know how you explain yourself. I do feel bad. The only guy in Houston I feel bad for is Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker's one of the class acts in the league, one of the better managers. And, of course, he succeeded A.J. Hinch. He was hired to be the new manager of Houston. And poor guy was just kind of thrown into the situation like, hey, I'd have anything to do with this. We saw the Red Sox were investigated last year with Alex Cora, who was rehired by the Red Sox because they didn't find any cheating that he did in Boston. But I totally agree with them investigating Alex Cora because, hey, he cheated in Houston. Let's see if he cheated in Boston, which, he didn't. They found out he did not cheat because, the Red Sox were not, penalized even close to what Houston was penalized. As we got another comment from Barry. Astros deserve what they get. They can't complain about the reaction is they are infamous. Yeah. I mean, that 2017 title will go down in history as one of the most marred titles, not just forget baseball history, forget World Series history, but in sports history. I mean, that's like, though you want some meaningless rings, like people make fun of Kevin Durant, like, oh, you didn't deserve those rings. Golden State didn't cheat. I mean, they just got the best player on the free agent market, which happened to be Kevin Durant. In this case with Houston, I mean, you literally cheated your way to a title. And we can't forget in 2019, when and I'll never forget this, when that series goes, I think it was Game 6. Yeah, it was Game 6. It was the Astros and Yankees in the ALCS. And Yankees have to win Game 6 to force a Game 7. And Jose Altuve, off of Aroldis Chapman, goes yard in the left center field to win that championship series against the Yankees. And Jose Altuve, you'd think he'd be jumping up and down. Oh, I just hit the game-winning, series-ending, World Series, or not World Series, but pennant-clinching home run off Aroldis Chapman against the New York Yankees. It's at home. The crowd's going crazy. And he turns around third. He's jogging home. His teammates are celebrating. And I've got a shirt on. He's saying, don't touch it. And so they were like, oh, did he have a buzzer in there telling him what Chapman was dealing? I don't know if they ever proved that, but certainly you could. I don't know why a guy would be saying, hey, don't touch it. Don't touch it. I don't know. You'd think, I don't think Aaron Boone, when he hit that game-winning homer to beat the Red Sox in the 11th inning in Game 7 back in 2003, Aaron Boone went jogging around third, going home saying, don't touch my jersey. Don't touch my. Because, you know how it goes. So, Houston gets what they've deserved. Let's see. Do you think what Houston did is comparable to what the Pats did with Spygate, coming from a Pats fan? This is from Grady Edwards. Here's the thing about Spygate. And it was bad. Like, people compare Spygate and Deflategate. Those aren't even close. I'm one who believes Deflategate is just a big nothing burger. I mean, they did not prove that the Patriots intentionally deflated the balls. We know that just like the tire on your car, footballs will deflate in cold weather, which that night in Foxborough, it was a rainy, cold, probably 35-degree night, that AFC Championship against the Colts. That Deflategate's just a bunch of nothing, and Tom Brady did not deserve that 4-game suspension. Spygate's a different story. The thing with Spygate, you're spying on practice. I get that. But during the game, you obviously get a good guess. Like, okay, they're running this formation that, we can kind of decipher what they're going to do. But you can't say for certain, this is the play they're going to run. They might audible out of it. Who knows? In baseball, you could see, okay, they're throwing this pitch. You don't just audible out of a pitch. And if you do, they can see if you do that as well. I could argue what the Patriots did a couple years back against the Cincinnati Bengals. They had a sideline camera pointed at the Bengals sideline, which you're not allowed to do. And, you could see the Bengals with the coaches, with their hand signals. And so they knew exactly what plays were being run. So that's different. Like, it's in-game. I think something in-game compared to recording someone's practice is totally different. Now, Spygate was bad. Spygate, the Patriots deserve what they got as far as punishment from the NFL. But as far as in-game, I think that's a different story, because in that moment, exactly for certain what is coming. So as bad as Spygate was, I don't think it really compares to what the Houston Astros did personally. It was bad. It was probably the worst cheating scandal in the league, in the NFL, in a while. But I don't think it compares to what the Houston Astros did. Like, you literally knew exactly what was coming. So that's my reaction to that. Thank you once again for the comment. Now let's shift to this I saw earlier today. Something called the Alpha Award, I'm not quite sure what that is, was awarded to DeAndre Hopkins, or probably more likely the Arizona Cardinals, for the best offseason acquisition in the NFL. Now, it was an excellent acquisition. DeAndre is one of the 3 best receivers in the league. He made probably the catch of the year, at least in the regular season. Triple covered. Triple covered against the Buffalo Bills. They call it the Hail Murray, because Kyler Murray, off his back foot, falling out of bounds, is one of the best throws and catches I've ever seen. I think what's interesting about it is DeAndre was a great acquisition. Some of that was just stupidity, and that's what it was on the part of Bill O'Brien, who's obviously no longer with the Texans. But he just, he gave DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals. Did they forget about this guy named, what was it? Was it like Tom Brady or something? I think, yeah, that was his name, Tom Brady. Did they forget that he left New England and Tampa Bay signed him? Was that not a good offseason acquisition? Because, all they did was go to the Super Bowl. They won on the road against a great Washington defense, and they beat a great Saints team on the road, and then they beat the MVP and Aaron Rodgers, and then they beat the reigning champs, the Kansas City Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes, and Brady was great in all those games. Did they just forget that? I mean, listen, DeAndre Hopkins had a great season. He had an unbelievable season. He might have led the NFL in receiving yards, if I remember correctly. So he was excellent. Cardinals didn't even make the playoffs. And I think the Cardinals are on an upward trajectory. You see what they've done in free agency, what they've done in the draft over the last few years. I think Steve Keim is an excellent general manager. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's done in Arizona. But they didn't even get to the playoffs. While he made them better, Tom took a 7-9 team, a talented 7-9 team, but a 7-9 team, and in one season, in a pandemic year, won the Super Bowl. So I don't know, whoever gives these Alpha Awards or whatever they are out, I'm not real sure what they're thinking here, because, I mean, listen, DeAndre's a great player. He's, I give DeAndre Hopkins a ton of credit for, he negotiated his own contract extension with the Cardinals. He didn't need an agent. He represented himself and negotiated his own contract. So, man, give him all the credit in the world for that. He's a great dude. He's a great player. Give him credit. But he made the Cardinals better. Tom did not just make the Bucs better. Man took them to the Super Bowl and they won it. Now, quarterbacks are, of course, more important than receivers at the end of the day. You take the greatest, if you had to start your franchise with one guy, would you start with Tom Brady or did you start with Jerry Rice? I'd start with Tom Brady, as great as Jerry Rice was, because the quarterback position is more important than any other position in the NFL. Really, even in American sports, you can make a case between starting pitcher or quarterback. I'd say quarterback, but because, a pitcher can't start every game. So that's kind of where I stand on that. Back to the Deflategate thing. Grady Edwards says it was low pressure. They won 45-10. Haha. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was a cold, rainy night. The weather was really bad. Balls deflate. Footballs are going to deflate in that type of weather. So I thought the Colts player, I think it was like DeQuell Jackson was his name, because he intercepted Tom Brady, I think in the second quarter of that game. And I get it. He's salty. They lost. The Patriots did not themselves deflate the balls. I don't doubt that the balls were deflated. The NFL found, hey, the balls were deflated. They found that. But I don't think they didn't listen. They didn't need deflated balls to beat the Colts. They didn't. So that's kind of where I stand on that whole thing. So yeah, that is, well, I got one more topic. James Wiseman, rookie for the Golden State Warriors, my Golden State Warriors, guy who I thought was the best player coming out of the 2020 draft, was taken second overall. Unfortunately, he is done for the season with a torn meniscus, which is, man, just, you hate for anybody to get hurt. But as a Warriors fan who watches every single second of every game, he, over the last month or so, kept getting better and better and better and better, and then bam, gets hurt. And so it's like, man, like really, like this guy. But no, he went up for a dunk attempt. They threw him a lob, and he went up for a dunk attempt, landed awkwardly on his knee. I thought he might have sprained it because, hey, he was walking fine to the locker room, but they found out on an MRI yesterday that he tore his meniscus and he's likely done for the season. So just hate it for the kid. You saw LaMelo Ball earlier this season. About a month ago, he's done for the year with injury. But in the case of the Warriors, and speaking as a fan, I've never seen, when it comes to the injury bug, I've never seen anything like the last 2 years, ever. I mean, I don't even want to get into the 2019 playoffs. Everybody got hurt. Outside of like Draymond, everybody got hurt. Steph dislocated his finger. Clay messed up his hamstring, then eventually tore his ACL. KD straightened his Achilles. It wasn't a calf. It was an Achilles. Because the very next game he came back, he tore his Achilles. He ruptured his Achilles, and he was done. Kevon Looney dislocated his shoulder. Iguodala had knee issues. And he was like, man, this DeMarcus Cousins tore his quad. And then you go into last season, and 4 games in, Steph breaks his hand and misses all but 1 game after that. A year after that, you get Klay Thompson then tears his Achilles, and now you got James Wiseman dealing with a season-ending injury. So it's like, we can't catch a break. We cannot catch a break right now. So I've been on the record saying, if this team is healthy, and if they're able to somehow add Kawhi in free agency this summer, they are absolutely a championship contender and a threat to the Lakers in the West. Could they beat the Nets? I don't know. But as long as you got Steph, Clay, Draymond healthy, you are going to have a shot. You are going to have a shot to contend for a championship and multiple championships, because they've proven that over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. One more comment before we go from Grady Edwards. He says it is a make it or break it year I don't know if that's a question or a statement. Make it or break it year for Cliff Kingsbury. I say so. Yes. He's done a decent job, but when you're the 4th best coach in a division, which that division is loaded with good coaches. You got Sean McVay, you've got Kyle Shanahan, 2 great offensive minds, and then you got the veteran. You got Pete Carroll, who's one of the better defensive minds in the NFL, and then you got Cliff Kingsbury. So, can they win the division? I love Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is one of the most exciting players in the league. Every single game you watch him, he gets better and better. He unfortunately had the shoulder issue at the end of last season for about the last month and a half, so that sucked to see. But he's got, they added AJ Green in free agency. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They've got the what's his name? Oh my goodness, the receiver from Texas A&M who's with the Cardinals now. I can't remember his name now, but they got him. Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk's a good slot receiver. They've got Larry Fitzgerald, can still play. He's not his prime Larry Fitzgerald, but the man can still play the game of football at a high level. And they're building their offensive line. They've got a really good defense. So if with all they added J.J. Watt, of course. If with all this talent, they can get to the playoffs this year, because I think the Cardinals can make the playoffs this year. I actually think they will make the playoffs, not as a division champ, but as a wild card team. If they can't make the playoffs this year, probably have to pull the plug on this Cliff Kingsbury experiment and go with somebody else. But yes, I think it's a make it or break it year for Coach Kingsbury. So with that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you all out there for all the comments, from Ryan Flowers to Barry Grant Jr. to Grady Edwards, who's a big Patriots fan. We saw Bam Bam made a comment. I'm just looking through them right here. Bunit Chima, I'm assuming a Clippers fan, made his thoughts heard. Greatly appreciate that. So looks like that is all who made their thoughts heard on the show. So appreciate all you guys stopping by the show. Be sure to catch us on Thursday, as always, at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on YouTube Live, Twitter, and Facebook. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you very much. We do the show on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. So hope everybody has a great day. Please continue to stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out.